Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to ABA Day 2025. I'm Bill Bay, President of the American Bar Association. It is my honor to kick off this vital day of advocacy. I've served as chair of the ABA Day Planning Committee in the past, so I know firsthand the power of this event. I am thrilled that today we are expanding our reach like never before. Today, through ABA Day Online, we are bringing together thousands of legal professionals across the country. Whether you're joining us from your home or workplace, you are part of a powerful nationwide network of advocates working toward one shared goal: ensuring that justice remains accessible, fair, and impartial. Together, we're going to focus on critical issues: strengthening funding for the Legal Services Corporation, enhancing judicial security, and filling judicial vacancies, renewing the Section 199A tax deduction, and preserving public service loan forgiveness. Best of all, you won't just be listening. Today, you will have the opportunity to take direct action alongside ABA members in Washington and those meeting with lawmakers back home. Thank you for being here. Thank you for standing up for justice. Now, to guide us through the issues and show you how to maximize your impact today, please welcome our ABA Day Planning Committee Chair and longtime leader in this effort, Gene Vance. Gene?
Thank you, Bill, and welcome to ABA Day Online 2025. I'm Gene Vance, Chair of the ABA Day Planning Committee this year, and I could not be more excited about this expanded, powerful advocacy opportunity. This year, ABA Day has been reimagined. So while hundreds of your colleagues are on Capitol Hill today, you and thousands more are taking part online, making your voices heard in every congressional district across America. Let's talk about the issues driving our advocacy. First, we're asking Congress to protect and strengthen funding for the Legal Services Corporation so that millions of Americans who cannot afford a lawyer can still access civil legal aid, especially during times of disaster. Second, we're urging action to bolster judicial security to protect our judges and court staff across the country from rising threats. And third, we're advocating to address the growing crisis of judicial vacancies that are delaying justice in courts nationwide. Now, in addition to these, we are also pushing for the renewal of the Section 199A small business deduction, which is vital for law firms and other professional service providers. And we're gathering stories to help protect the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Now, throughout this broadcast, you're going to hear directly from members of Congress, legal experts, and advocates. You're also going to have multiple opportunities to take action immediately. Using our own Quorum Advocacy program, you can send emails and letters to Congress, you can share your story, and you can track legislation. So look for prompts on screen throughout the program. It's your cue to make your voice heard. Now, also, before we dive into today's program, I want to thank our sponsors who made this event possible. First, our premier sponsor, Quorum, whose advocacy tools you will use throughout the day. Thank you for your continued partnership. And thanks also to our headline sponsors, SKO Gov and Baker Donaldson, for your generous support. Don't log off when we wrap up this main broadcast. We have a series of advocacy-focused breakout sessions hosted by ABA sections and entities, each diving deeper into specific issues with targeted calls to action. Let's make today matter. Together, we are the voice of the legal profession, and together, we will make a difference.
Hey everyone, Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick here, proudly representing Pennsylvania's 1st Congressional District. It's an honor to join you remotely today and to stand with such dedicated advocates in our shared longstanding fight to expand access to justice. As an attorney, as a member of Congress, and as the co-chair of the Bipartisan Access to Legal Aid Caucus, I've worked closely with many of you for several years now, and I've seen the real-world impact of your work, from helping veterans secure benefits, helping survivors of domestic violence find safety, and helping families avoid eviction, and helping communities rebuild after disasters. The civil justice gap is wide, as we all know, and it's also growing. But the Legal Services Corporation has remained a steady force for good. For more than 50 years, LSC has delivered essential legal support to millions of Americans who otherwise would have no one to turn to. And as we celebrate LSC's 51st anniversary, I just want to reaffirm my full support, my full bipartisan support for its mission, and my continued commitment to working alongside you to defend and strengthen this vital institution. You all have helped build a coalition that cuts across party lines and that keeps the promise of justice alive for those who need it the most. And that work has never been more important than right now. We've come a long way together, but obviously there's a lot more work to do, because equal justice under the law must be more than a phrase above a courthouse door. It must be a guarantee we deliver on for every single American in every community across this country. So thank you for your partnership. Thank you for everything you do to defend liberty and to pursue justice. God bless.
I'm Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon of Pennsylvania's 5th Congressional District, and I'm so glad to welcome you to the American Bar Association's annual fly-in event. As a former Legal Services Board member and now co-chair of the Bipartisan Access to Legal Aid Caucus, I'm so grateful for the advocacy that you and your colleagues are doing on behalf of legal services. And I wanted to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come to the Hill and speak to my colleagues about the importance of legal aid, not just for the individual client, but for our communities and to the actual functioning of a civil society. As members of the ABA and lawyers in your own communities, your influence in Congress cannot be overstated. Your convening here to speak with your representatives brings a gravitas to the issue that's difficult to ignore, and you have a compelling story to tell. You all know how important the work of legal services is and how grossly underfunded. You know how access to justice is not a reality in this country, with funding for LSC remaining stagnant for decades. But many of my colleagues don't know that, and you can help draw their attention to it. Legal aid benefits constituents in every member's district, so please try to draw those local connections when you meet with them and their staffs, whether it's to seniors or veterans or families who could be illegally evicted. If any offices seem receptive, please tell them about the training module that my office put together to help constituent services staff collaborate with local legal services in order to drive better outcomes for more constituents. I'm proud to be leading the letter to appropriators this year to call for increased funding for the Legal Services Corporation, and your work on the Hill will be a big help. Please let me know how I can be helpful or if I can follow up with anyone that you meet with, and I look forward to seeing you around the Hill. Thank you.
I was denied not once, not twice, but 3 times. I enlisted in the military in 2005, and I was stationed at Walter Reed Army Medical Center.
Ms. Gibbs had very severe PTSD from different trauma while she was in the military.
PTSD starts out as something little where you just might get anxious about something. From there, it can consume a person to the point where you can't function. Getting out of bed, eating, things of that nature, you can't even do that.
She was having a lot of problems with her Social Security disability case. She really needed those extra funds to be able to fully thrive and live comfortably.
The Justice Gap study found that 76% of low-income veteran households experienced at least one civil legal problem in the past year. In the U.S. today, an estimated 1.6 million veterans are considered to be low income. In the United States, however, there is no right to counsel in most civil legal matters.
In my experience, even if somebody does have quite legitimate disability claims, initially a claim will just be denied. Veterans really don't have any extra priority as somebody that served the country. They're kind of in the same pool as everybody else.
I had literally done everything that I could, and we were strictly at this point, it was just straight litigation. There was nothing else that could be done.
Ultimately, Captain Gibbs was able to get the help she needed. But there are low-income veterans across the country who do not have access to civil legal aid.
If we're talking about life without Rachel, so to speak, it'd be bleak. Yeah, I could still be in appeal status, still not getting any SSI benefits. It was life-changing, I'll be very truthful with you.
Thank you for joining our digital ABA Day, the American Bar Association's largest annual lobbying day, where hundreds of lawyers gather in Washington, D.C. and online to meet members of Congress and to advocate for issues that are important to us. I also want to thank Representative Mary Gay Scanlon and Representative Brian Fitzpatrick for their leadership of the Congressional Access to Legal Aid Caucus. My name is Danny Borrell, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the ABA Young Lawyer Division Chair, representing 90,000 law students and young lawyers from across the country. I am a Louisiana young lawyer in private practice, and today I'm joined by some of our fellow ABA YLD leaders from our Disaster Legal Services team. Today, we are going to work with the ABA's Governmental Affairs Office to ask Congress to consider advocating for funding disaster legal services. To understand the importance of disaster legal service programs, who it helps, and the impact it has on our American citizens, our DLS leaders will provide us with education of the program and the boots on the ground impact it has to all of our citizens.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Brown. I am a Louisiana young lawyer. I'm currently working as a legal technologist in a nonprofit that I've started, and this year I have the honor of serving as the director of the ABA YLD's Disaster Legal Services team. Today, I'm super excited to join you all, being joined by Shristi Kathari, another important member of the DLS team, and we're going to try and help you better understand the need for disaster legal services and the work that the DLS program does. Shristi, you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Amanda. My name is Judicial, and I have the pleasure of working with Amanda on the ABA YLD DLS team. I am a Texas young lawyer, and I currently work in public service. This year, I have the honor of serving as the Vice Director of Implementation on the DLS team, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we're going to get into the substance of our conversation today. And at the outset, just wanted to give you an overview of what we'll be talking about. So I'd like to give you a high-level overview of what disaster legal services actually even is. What does that look like? And Shristi's going to talk to us about why disaster survivors even need legal assistance, what that actually looks like in terms of service delivery, and what types of issues people generally experience in the wake of natural disasters. As we close out, I'll talk to you a little bit about the impact that the DLS program has had over the years, and give you some specific insight into all the amazing things that the DLS team has been doing just in this year alone in terms of response to Hurricane Helene, a number of wildfires, tornadoes, you name it, every disaster type that's out there. Our team is on the ground supporting local legal service organizations to make sure that survivors are getting access to key legal services. So, as far as background of DLS actually goes, a lot of people aren't even familiar with the fact that there is federal legislation that outlines the requirement for providing disaster legal services to folks that have been impacted by disasters but don't necessarily or can't necessarily afford to hire an attorney to help them with their issue. So under the Stafford Act, disaster legal services has been described as a program to be implemented by FEMA in the wake of federally declared disasters. So not every single disaster gets an activation for disaster legal services. All of the largest disasters that you see that impact a large number of people have this component to program delivery that's administered through FEMA. So the ABA has had a partnership with FEMA for over 50 years to help implement these services and make sure that survivors are getting access to these critical services. Now, Shristi, I would love to ask you to come in and tell us again, what is it that attorneys do in the wake of disasters? What do these partnerships look like? What types of issues are people experiencing?
Thanks, Amanda. When a disaster strikes, the last thing people think about is, oh, let me give my lawyer a call. Let's see what's going on. But, lawyers play an integral role when it comes to disaster response. We're there before, after, and way long after a disaster actually strikes. And disaster legal issues occur on a cyclical manner for every disaster that exists. In the immediate aftermath, you're going to see simpler issues in the short term, such as lease terminations and evictions, utility shutoffs, security deposit issues. Maybe say you're a scummy landlord that's not working out. Maybe your clients lost all of their documents in the disaster itself when their house flooded or burnt down and they need to replace all their documentations. And then you're going to see issues such as income protections when it comes to replacing your assistance for unemployment assistance and public benefit applications. One other thing you're going to see in the beginning of it is the necessity to apply for FEMA assistance when a disaster first strikes. As I said, it continues on for months and maybe years sometimes. Going forward in the medium term, 1 to 6 months, you're going to see more of the FEMA appeal issues that come in. Landlord-tenant issues will continue on. Real property title clearing issues and probate issues that might come in. Something that people don't often think about is public education issues that also arise in the aftermath of a disaster. For example, if you have a client who has need to access public education while they're displaced and they've moved on to a different location, they might need to access their IEPs, etc. They might need to make guardianship and supportive decision-making decisions that need to assist them in the aftermath of a disaster as well. Moving on in the long term, 6 months to years after an event, it can really stretch out. Oftentimes, we do know our friends in Florida, Louisiana are still handling cases for Katrina that occurred a little over 18 years ago now. In those long-term issues, we see foreclosure, legal issues that turn up, landlord-tenant issues that might come in, flood insurance dispute, FEMA recoupment issues, and disaster tax relief applications or bankruptcies. So, to say the least, the disaster legal issues will arise and they will have long tails. Thinking of lawyers that can help and support in the immediate aftermath is something we always see, but we do want to ensure to encourage folks to be around for years to come as these issues are not going to go away. Disaster survivors require the most assistance possible. They're people that have gone through the biggest change in their life, the most traumatic effect, and they're trying to just get back into recovery phases. So any assistance that can be given to them to navigate the difficult bureaucracies and the difficult systems that we have in place to get them back on their feet is a great help. And lawyers can be that person. Lawyers can be the advocates that can help understand the system, that can help navigate it, and that can help resolve any disputes or issues that might be occurring over the time. So being in touch with your legal aid attorneys in your region is critical in the aftermath of a disaster. Amanda, back to you.
You can see how essential, whether we recognize it or not as lawyers, how essential and how impactful the involvement of a lawyer in somebody's disaster recovery journey can really be. We also see that there's this compounded effect of the access to justice barrier that you've already heard about through the ABA presentations, through conversations with LSC, helping everybody to understand that low-income and marginalized people in the United States simply don't lack access to legal services the way that they could or should. While there's support to help there's a lot of other barriers that folks face, especially in the wake of disasters, that impact their ability to get services. Things like just a general lack of resources or time. Obviously, money is a huge resource for people trying to get back on their feet. transportation, distrust a lot of times in the government and the systems that are put in place to support people. Without this education and without these people that are walking side by side with disaster survivors, it's really hard for them to fully recover. And what that ultimately results in is an inequitable recovery. So folks that can afford lawyers, folks that have money, folks that have the knowledge of how systems work, they're going to recover just fine. But the most vulnerable people and populations that we're dealing with go without. And it's compounded in terms of what happens after a disaster. So these partnerships that are done through the ABA in connection with the local legal service corporation organizations that we partner with all the time really help build the knowledge about the availability of legal services and what these programs can actually do in order to assist survivors and help them get back on their feet. So shifting now to sort of some of the impact that this work has. I'll just say since 2020 alone, partners through this program have served over 10,000 disaster survivors. So those are 10,000 people that have a better chance at a full and equitable recovery from that major disaster that Ashwasti mentioned is really traumatic for a lot of people. So having that support is extremely important. And then just since 2024 alone, about this time last year, our program and all the organizations that we collaborate have activated for over 40 major natural disasters. I want to emphasize that in the past, disaster response work through the program has been a lot smaller in volume, we'll say. Maybe when I first started this program in 2016, we maybe had 6 to 8 disasters every year, and that has continued to grow and double, and it feels like triple, in terms of how many disasters we're seeing. We can't deny that the disaster response work that has to be done there in the wake of the increase of disasters is extremely intense and really requires all of us as attorneys to support people that are dealing with these problems. And as another example of kind of what has been going on the ground, I'd love to highlight the work of our team member, Elizabeth Brooks Savage, who was our DLS team member, as well as a district representative serving in North Carolina in the wake of Hurricane Helene this year. So Hurricane Helene, as everybody knows, it came up through the Gulf, and it really impacted, I think it was a 7-state implementation. But North Carolina was really hard hit because they weren't expecting this. And Brooks just did amazing work in basically coordinating a multi-agency response that involved not just FEMA, but also state agencies, obviously includes the ABA and our partnership, includes legal service corporation grantees, non-legal service corporation legal providers, the Red Cross. Tons and tons of organizations came to the table to talk about the needs of the community, the legal needs that they had, and really activated and mobilized an incredible response to making sure that those communities were getting access to legal services. So the coordination alone was impressive, but in addition to that, it was about rallying young lawyer volunteers and getting out there herself even to go into disaster recovery centers and sit down with people face to face and really just be empathetic and sit there and listen to the problems that people were having and try and guide them to help. This is the work that is done under these programs. This is the work of disaster legal services. And this is the work that is essential. And again, in making sure that there is an equitable recovery. So this is just one example of the value of these types of federal partnerships that we have. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share about the impact and the work of the Disaster Legal Services Program for ABA Day. Thank you, guys.
As you can see, disaster legal services is an important issue that impacts all of us. Today, we have a chance to advocate directly to our members of Congress and the White House using the ABA Congressional Messaging Portal to continue to support these important programs. please take some time to send a message of support through the ABA Day's Congressional Messaging Portal. Thank you for those of you who were able to join us, and we look forward to working alongside you in the halls of Congress and online to take this important action. Thank you for everyone who has participated in ABA Day.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Ron Flagg, President of the Legal Services Corporation. And I want to start out by thanking each and every one of you for participating in ABA Days. Your advocacy on Capitol Hill is vitally important to the future of access to justice in this country. The long-standing partnership between LSC and the ABA is something we are deeply proud of and tremendously grateful for. Together, we are working to ensure that every American, regardless of income, has access to the legal help they need to protect their homes, their families, their safety, and their livelihoods. Today, I'd like to share a brief update on where things stand for LSC, particularly when it comes to funding, and highlight how your advocacy can make a real difference in the months ahead. First, the good news. We were relieved and grateful that LSC received full funding for fiscal year 2025 at the $560 million level through the continuing resolution passed on March 15th. That funding carries us through September 30th, 2025. However, looking ahead to fiscal year 2026, which begins October 1, we're taking nothing for granted. As you know, LSC's grantees provide civil legal aid to people who cannot afford a lawyer in life-altering matters like eviction, domestic violence, access to benefits, and disaster recovery. And yet this work has been chronically underfunded for decades. We still must fight every year to ensure that we have the funding to do this critical work. This year, we've launched a three-pronged strategy to spotlight, both on Capitol Hill and in the court of public opinion, the important role civil legal aid plays in America. First, with regard to legislative outreach, our government affairs team is actively meeting with members of Congress and their staff to spotlight how civil legal aid makes a difference for their constituents right in their home districts. Second, with regard to stakeholder engagement, we're communicating with a broad coalition of supporters, including state Supreme Court justices, state attorneys general, corporate general counsel, law firm leaders, and law school deans, all of whom are voicing their support to congressional leadership. Third, regarding strategic communications, we've launched a proactive messaging campaign to combat misinformation about LSC's work and prepare for the possibility that the White House budget might, again, propose defunding our organization. Our hope is that these efforts will not only raise awareness, but also provide members of Congress who support LSC the information they need to continue their support, especially if they face pressure to vote against us. In mid-April, LSC will release our own fiscal year 2026 budget request. We will ask for $2.1 billion, a figure based on what it would actually take for our grantees to serve all eligible clients. And I emphasize the word all. Right now, more than half of those who seek help from civil legal aid are turned away due to lack of resources. That's simply unacceptable. And this is where your advocacy comes in. When you meet with members of Congress or their staff during ABA days, I ask that you emphasize two things. First, LSC must be protected because it plays an essential role in the justice system and in the provision of critical constituent services in every congressional district and state in the country. Second, please sign on to the bipartisan Dear Colleague letters in support of LSC funding for fiscal year 2026 in both the House and the Senate. And as you know, the most effective way to persuade a member of Congress is to connect the issue to their local communities and their personal interests. If you're speaking with a member who's a veteran, share how legal aid helps veterans secure benefits and stability after their service. If you're talking to someone with strong business ties, highlight how legal aid supports workforce stability through expungement services or housing assistance. If you're focused on disaster relief, healthcare, or public safety, there's a legal aid story for that too. At lsc.gov/facts, you'll find fact sheets tailored to key legal aid issue areas. You can also find client stories and state-specific data at lsc.gov/impact to help make your case. And don't forget to highlight the return on investment and why LSC is an efficient and effective use of the American tax dollars. We grant out almost 95% of the funding we get from Congress, and every dollar invested in civil legal aid yields roughly $7 in economic benefits. Without funding, eviction and domestic violence rates rise, increasing pressure on shelters and food banks. Without funding, people lose access to critical benefits like VA health benefits or Social Security income. Without funding, survivors of domestic violence go unprotected. Neighborhoods hit by natural disasters struggle to rebuild. The human and financial cost is staggering. We're here to support your advocacy. Our team at LSC has available a stakeholder toolkit that includes key messaging points and timelines, social media posts, topic-specific fact sheets, and data on the consequences of funding cuts in your state. We are sharing these with the ABA network. They can be used at your meetings. It can also serve as a powerful follow-up tool as part of a thank you messaging to congressional staff after your meetings. And we're always available to answer your questions with your outreach efforts. If you'd like to connect, our point person is Maria DeVouvier. You'll find her email in the supporting documents. That's DUVUVUEIM@lsc.gov. Also, please follow LSC on social media and help us amplify our message. We're on Twitter, now known as X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thank you again for being part of ABA Days and for being such strong champions of access to justice. Your voices matter. Your advocacy is powerful, and your partnership is essential to ensuring that LSC can continue to support the most vulnerable members of our society. Thank you, and keep up the great work.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for the speakers you've already heard from. Representatives Scanlon, Fitzpatrick, Danny Burrell from our Young Lawyer Divisions, and Ron Flagg from the Legal Services Corporation have all given you the compelling reasons why we need to ensure that Legal Services Corporation continues to exist and continues to be funded. Now we need your help. Please use the links in the chat or below to send your messages to your elected officials. Make sure when you register that you are using your home address. That way it'll pre-populate the letter to go to your elected officials, both your senators and your elected representative. Do that now. One of our priority issues this year is judicial security. Court personnel and judges continue to see threats against them on the rise across this country at the federal level and the state level. Unfortunately, no one knows the risks associated with those threats more than our next speaker. We're honored to introduce Judge Esther Salas from the U.S. District Court for the District of New Jersey to join us here today.
Hello, my name is Esther Salas, and I'm a United States District Judge for the District of New Jersey. My family was brutally attacked on Sunday, July 19, 2020, when a disgruntled lawyer came to my home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, rang the doorbell, and within seconds took the life of my only child, Daniel, and almost took the life of my husband, Mark. In the 4+ years that followed that dreadful day, Mark and I have done the best that we can do to transform our pain into something positive. We have been honored to work with so many leaders from both sides of the aisle to bring about common sense laws that help protect judges, starting with the passage of Daniel's Law in New Jersey in 2020. We are grateful for the leadership of the many federal and state legislators who stepped forward to sponsor bills aimed at protecting judges. I would also be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to thank the ABA for its support, which led to the enactment of the Daniel Anderl Judicial Security and Privacy Act, and that came into law in December 2022. The passage of Daniel's Law and the Daniel Anderl Act, since the passage of those two laws, we have seen other states enact laws aimed at protecting judges' personally identifiable information. These are solid steps in the right direction, but much work remains to be done. Now more than ever, we need to rally together to protect the judiciary and its independence. As Chief Justice John Roberts noted in his 2024 year-end report, there has always been some tension between the three branches of government. That's inevitable. However, as the Chief Justice noted in his report, not all people engage in informed criticism of our rulings. Instead, more recently, people who disagree with our rulings have chosen violence, intimidation, spreading of disinformation, and even threats to defy lawfully entered orders. Let me be very clear. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is an American issue. It is without question that criticizing our decisions is fair game. Criticism of judicial interpretations of the law is as old as the Republic. Such criticism and challenges really are the hallmark of a healthy democracy. But what's not fair game is when leaders or people with power and influence accuse us of being partisan and corrupt without any bases. Whether those accusations, by the way, come from the right or left is of no moment. That type of criticism is irresponsible and dangerous. When our leaders use the media or social platforms to spread misinformation, or worse yet, when they use inflammatory insults to mischaracterize our rulings, they are inviting others to do us harm. Such dangerous behavior is playing Russian roulette with our lives and the lives of our loved ones. This is no exaggeration, because I sit here today addressing this group as the mother of a slain child. Her only child is gone. My only child is gone because of one reason and one reason only: doing my job. Mark and I know the value of human life. We live every day without Daniel, which is an excruciating reminder of what's happened and what could happen to another judge. Since our tragedy, there have been numerous examples. I can cite to the near miss with Justice Kavanaugh in 2022. I can cite to the murder of Judge John Romer in Wisconsin, Judge Andrew Wilkinson in Maryland in 2023, the near miss of what I would call a near miss in a hoax bomb aimed at Justice Coney Barrett and her family. The numerous death threats that have been lodged against judicial officers who have rendered decisions that have been perceived as going against the administration. These are all dangers that are real, are happening now. And I remind everyone what Chief Justice Roberts said to us in his report. There is no place for violence directed at judges for doing our jobs. His Honor was clear that irresponsible rhetoric shrouded in disinformation undermines the public's confidence in our justice system. And when our leaders deliberately seek to discredit our justice system, they are doing our justice system harm as well. Threatening judges with articles of impeachment for doing our jobs, calling our chambers and wishing us dead, coming to our homes and shooting our loved ones dead, those are all perfect examples of the dangers of intimidation. Judges must be free to do our jobs without fear of retribution, reprisal, retaliation, or death. An independent federal judiciary established in Article 3 of our Constitution and preserved in our nation's history for over 200 years remains, as the Chief Justice described it, one of the crown jewels of our system of government. Our system depends on the rule of law. Our Constitution hinges on an independent judiciary. And ladies and gentlemen, we have to demand more of ourselves, and we have to demand more of those that are our leaders. By participating in this year's ABA Day online program, you can make a difference today and moving forward. Words matter. How we treat each other, that matters. How we react when a ruling doesn't go our way, that matters. It's up to each of us to decide what kind of standards we want to live by. In promoting healthy interaction and collegiality among all legal professions and beyond, it is my sincere hope that we remember that advocacy need not resemble an elementary school playground where bullies use name calling and insults to weaken their opponents. Instead, I hope that we all begin to compromise with the other side, whoever the other side is to you. I hope we all begin to be more impeccable with our words. I hope we all remember that when we don't treat each other with civility and professionalism, we all lose. I know I'm preaching to the choir because the ABA has been leading the charge in condemning the recent threats against judges and the independence of the judiciary. I ask you to continue to advocate for the judiciary's independence. I ask you to continue to advocate for the rule of law. And I ask you to remember that democracy is what we all have benefited from for over 200 years, and God willing, what we will all continue to benefit for 200 more. Thank you for your time. God bless you all.
I'm Larson Frisbee, and I'm the ABA's Associate Governmental Affairs Director. I'm also the lead lobbyist on our Tax Fairness for Law Firms issue, in which we are urging Congress to renew and preserve the existing small business tax deduction for owners of law firms and all other pass-through businesses that's set to expire later this year. As explained on our ABA Day website, this issue is one of our digital and district issues. So I would encourage you to explore some of the digital resources we have prepared for you in the digital toolkit. Prior to joining the ABA Governmental Affairs Office many years ago, I practiced law in Dallas for 10 years, first with a large law firm, and then for several years as a solo practitioner in which I owned my own small law firm. Therefore, as a former practicing attorney and small business owner myself, I understand and appreciate the importance of preserving the existing small business deduction and ensuring that it applies equally to all pass-through businesses, including law firms. In this video, I will give a brief overview of the issue, clarify what specifically we are asking Congress to do, and explain what you can do to help on this issue. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, which was enacted during President Trump's first term, was the first major reform of the nation's tax system in more than 30 years. In addition to lowering the tax rates for corporations and most individuals, the act also included significant tax reductions for millions of mostly small pass-through businesses, including partnerships, LLCs and S corporations, and sole proprietorships. These are businesses that do not pay federal income tax directly, but instead pass profits through to the owners of the businesses, who then report the income on their individual tax returns. To reduce taxes on those small pass-through businesses, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act created Section 199A of the Internal Revenue Code, which allows the individual owners of the pass-through businesses to deduct 20% of the qualified business income they receive from those businesses. The goal and effect of that deduction was to make pass-through businesses effective marginal tax rates roughly equivalent to those of larger public corporations. Although owners of most types of pass-through businesses are eligible to receive the full deduction, the deduction unfairly phases out for owners of law firms, accounting firms, and other so-called specified service trades or businesses, whose taxable income exceeds certain thresholds. Therefore, owners of law firms and other specified service trades or businesses can't claim the full deduction if they earn more than $197,300 for single taxpayers, or earn more than $394,600 for married taxpayers filing jointly in 2025. For those owners of law firms and other specified service trades or businesses with taxable income above those thresholds, their qualified business income deduction phases out completely when the single taxpayer's income is $50,000 above the single threshold, or where the married taxpayer's income is $100,000 above the married taxpayer's threshold. Unfortunately, the Section 199A deduction will expire on December 31st unless it's renewed by Congress, resulting in a large tax hike on millions of small business owners, including many law firm partners and solo practitioners. The other problem, as I just mentioned, is that even if the deduction is renewed, it unfairly phases out for owners of law firms, accounting firms, and other specified service trades or businesses if their taxable income exceed certain thresholds. In order to address these two problems, we're encouraging Congress to permanently renew the Section 199A deduction and apply it equally to all small pass-through businesses, including law firms and other professional service businesses, without any income-related phase-outs or other limitations. As explained in the ABA's one-pager and the ABA's talking points that are posted on our ABA Day website, we and our small business allies have four main arguments why Congress should permanently renew the deduction and apply it to all pass-through businesses on an equal basis. First, we argue that the deduction encourages job creation and economic growth and enables pass-through businesses to compete on a more level playing field with larger corporations. Second, unless the deduction is renewed, it will expire on December 31st, resulting in a large tax hike on millions of small businesses, including many law firms and other professional service businesses. Third, we argue that because pass-through businesses account for 95% of all U.S. businesses and employ 63% of private sector workers, they're critical to our economy and must be protected. And finally, we note that because law firms, accounting firms, and other professional service businesses provide many good-paying jobs and are an important part of local economies, they should receive the same deduction as other pass-through businesses. As further explained in our ABA Day one-pager and talking points for this issue that's posted on our website, we encourage you to urge your senators and representatives to pass legislation that permanently renews the Section 199A small business deduction for pass-through businesses before it expires on December 31st. In addition, please ask your members of Congress to apply the full 20% deduction for qualified business income to all pass-through businesses, including law firms and other professional businesses, on an equal, non-discriminatory basis, with no income-related phase-outs or other limitations. As online participants in ABA Day this year, we ask that you go to the online grassroots tools on the ABA Day website and then send a personalized email letter to your two senators and to your representative by editing and emailing our suggested form letter. That suggested email form letter that we prepared briefly explains this issue and urges the senator or representative to help pass legislation making the small business deduction permanent and applying it equally to all pass-through businesses, including law firms, without any income-related phase-outs or other limitations. Also, if you have any personal meetings before or after ABA Day in your district, please consider raising this issue with your members of Congress or their staff at that time. If you do meet with them, please let us know how the meetings went so that we can follow up with those congressional offices more effectively. If you have any questions or need more information, please feel free to email me at larson.frisbee@americanbar.org. Thank you again for participating in our ABA Day in Washington program and for helping us to advocate on this tax fairness for law firms issue and the other key issues. Your efforts make a big difference and are very much appreciated.
Thank you, Larson. That really is an important issue that's impacting a lot of the legal professionals in our field. To hear about how pass-through entities and the tax policy that affects them is impacting so many different levels of our members, from solo practitioners all the way up to large law firms. It's pretty staggering to hear some of the numbers. Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Story, and I'm the Director of Grassroots and Digital Advocacy here at the American Bar Association. And I know that we have talked a lot about different bills that are moving through Congress today. And if you're anything like me, it is difficult to keep all of this legislation in mind. So I wanted to take a second and talk to you about some of our bill tracking service that's available to you as ABA members, and how we as the GAO and the ABA keep track of some of this stuff on our end. So to help me today, I have asked one of our good friends at Quorum to join us, Aditya Kamanduri, as we like to call him, AK. So I thank you very much for joining us, AK.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Eric. The pleasure is mine.
So Quorum really comes in and helping us take care of a lot of pieces of legislation all at once. The ABA uses Quorum to organize and power our campaigns, including the letters our advocates are sending today, and also keep track of some of these live bills. If you don't mind, can you show us a little bit about what we can do with some of this bill tracking software?
So the goal of Quorum here is to make it easy for teams like yours, wherever you are, whether you're monitoring federal legislation, state legislation, or even stuff at the local level, to make it really easy to organize and stay up to date on all of this information in one single place. So using the NORA Act as an example here, you can see Quorum is quickly providing you an AI summary for top line metrics of what this bill says. It's going to give you a timeline of where this bill is in the process and key information of who's sponsoring it, co-sponsoring it, basically who the people behind this piece of legislation are. And I can quickly come in here and say, hey, this is maybe a high priority legislation that we want to tag to our key legislative issues. I can do this also with any number of different bills, but the idea is we're putting key bills where they belong in the right folders. Eric, you also mentioned really quickly that there might be some appropriations bills that mention legal aid, right? AI is one of the most powerful tools within Quorum to help teams who may not be technological experts or technological wizards get this information within a matter of seconds. So I can come in here and say, find me appropriations bills that mention legal aid. Quorum will then think about this, scan the database for legislation that mentions legal aid, and pull that list for you within a matter of seconds. I can also see the list of 86 bills here that do mention these and quickly tag them to any issues that we want to tag them to. So the idea here is to make it really easy to file all the bills that we have talked about at ABA or that we think about throughout the course of a year in one place. So we'll start there, Eric, because I think that's the first step of like how we create a report that makes all the stuff really easy.
That sounds great. That sounds great. And as far as our participants in ABA Day are concerned, is there a way that we could put these all in one place and allow them to come back here and keep track of all these things?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we don't want to be stuck in a place where it's 100 different alerts on all the key bills because, everyone here is busy enough. So the value of Quorum here is that I can make a spreadsheet that essentially consolidates all these bills into one key area. Let me call this ABA Day High Priority Legislation Spreadsheet. From here, what I'll tell Quorum is, hey, find me all the bills that I just tagged under my key issues. So it has the NORA Act, has the Judges Act, has any appropriations bills that we've tagged. So with the click of a button, all the 11, 12, 20 bills, how many ever it is, it's easy for me to keep track of them in one place.
That's fantastic. And is there a way that we can make that public so everybody can access that?
Read my mind, 100%. The goal here with the Quorum spreadsheets is twofold. One, make it really easy to share these spreadsheets externally. You can share a link, or you can copy paste it and embed it on an existing website. But the second big value proposition here is that once you create this spreadsheet once, it automatically updates whenever there's movement or changes to the bills that we have identified. So it's showing me here status text, what the last timeline action is, and a link to the bill. But if any of these bills move through the process, the spreadsheet automatically updates. Does that help, Eric? Would that help?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. One additional question here. I noticed you have the external link. A lot of the people that are watching, and I know the people in the Governmental Affairs Office, have to keep track of a lot of bills. And we try to get some of this information out to any members that approach us. Is there a way that we could get like a summary of the bill or something like that?
Yeah, great question. This is not all you are stuck with Quorum. Clicking the new column button up here basically gives you access to take any little data point out of Quorum and put it in the spreadsheet. So if you remember earlier, we were showing you the AI summary. We can put that on a spreadsheet. If we care maybe about when the last timeline action date was, or maybe we care about who the sponsors and co-sponsors are of this piece of legislation. The idea here is to take all these little data points from a top line summary to when the last movement was to who's sponsoring and co-sponsoring, and with the click of a button, add that to the spreadsheet, which automatically applies this to the entire pieces of legislation that you're talking about.
That's fantastic, AK. And you did mention that you can do this with state and local bills as well?
100%. So Quorum tracks federal legislation, state legislation, and city and county meeting minutes and meeting agendas and dialogue for municipalities over 5,000 people in size, like we talked about. So the coverage is pretty extensive no matter what municipality or state you primarily operate in.
That's fantastic. I'm going to have to nerd out on this, and I am going to really appreciate those AI summaries. I can tell you that right now. Well, if anybody has any questions about this, how can they reach out to you?
Great question. In the same place the spreadsheet will be in the toolkit is, you'll have my email address right here, along with some more information on what Quorum can do for your organization. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm an email away.
Thank you so much, AK, and thank you for all you do for the ABA and for all the different organizations you work with. That sets us up very nicely to keep track of some of these bills. So I am now going to kick it to our next presenter, Kenneth Goldsmith, who can tell us a little bit more about the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, the current environment it's in, and what we can do to help protect it and preserve it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ken Goldsmith from the ABA Governmental Affairs Office, and I'm here to talk to you about the Federal Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program as part of ABA Day Digital 2025. Welcome. As you may know, PSLF is a program that exchanges student loan relief for at least 10 years of qualifying public service and timely payments. The ABA played a central role leading up to and in the program's creation in 2007, and along with our allies and advocates like you, we have been defending it from attacks most every year since. So the fact that you're hearing from me now is a reflection of the attention being given to PSLF in Congress, although you won't see much in writing other than rhetoric like a recent Wall Street Journal editorial calling for an end to the program, or the president's recent executive order seeking to exclude some organizations from it. Based on how this year has gone so far, there's likely more where that came from too. But despite the absence of a clear, articulated attack in Congress, we need to be vigilant and strategically proactive. As you may have heard, members of Congress are going through the proverbial couch cushions looking for loose programs to reduce or end in order to help fund the president's multi-trillion-dollar agenda. While bigger programs have lawmakers' attention, we do hear a suggestion that PSLF is hanging out there like a cash money piñata, and staff on both sides have confirmed that everything should be considered as on the table. And what does that mean, on the table? It means that we're starting from Republican proposals for higher ed reform in recent Congresses, although you should know that they are listening for additional and alternate ideas as well. But currently, these proposals attempt to get at things like funding or forgiving debt for tuitions now topping $70,000 a year at some law schools, while a degree from a school costing just half that is just as valid for entry to law practice. So their leading ideas include such things as ending the generous Grad Plus loan program, eliminating existing income-driven repayment plans for a new one that may be less generous, and limiting both how much a person may borrow from the federal government in a given year and over their lifetime. This has also included proposals from both sides to reform PSLF over the years. Such proposals seek to limit how much you can get from the program. During his term, President Obama proposed just $57,500 as the max, and others proposed restrictions on program eligibility. One draft bill asked Congress just proposed excluding doctors and lawyers outright. And at the farthest extreme, the president in his first term, like others in Congress now, are now on record as opposing forgiveness programs, including PSLF. I share this with you to give you a glimpse that there are rational policy reasons for even draconian proposals, and there is room for conversation. But cutting PSLF to save money without considering its impact is reckless. At no time in 20 years have I heard a proposal for what to do were the program to shrink or end. It would be like tearing down a highway, sending tractor trailers through main streets 24/7, because that's who would have to absorb the cost of ending PSLF. Local communities who need the services but can't afford them. And that gap between the high cost of an advanced degree for licensure and public sector pay is now wider than what justified the program's creation 20 years ago. So there may not be an articulated threat to the program just yet, but there's no immediate threat to a piñata when you first hang it up either. We cannot wait for legislation to be written, especially for a fast-moving process. PSLF was created through budget reconciliation after all. And we're expecting action to begin once both chambers have adopted the final compromise set of instructions for how much committees should cut, and the Senate just approved its plan. Now, thankfully, working with you, we're good at what we do. And that's made easier by our collaboration with the influential National PSLF Coalition. And this year, the ABA is rolling out a new digital campaign to preserve PSLF. It's launching at ABA Day, but it will go for as long as there's a need. And we have a new trick up our sleeve that we think can turn pushing back into turning tables. And that's because with everything that lawmakers and their staff and the administration know and are considering, what they don't know is you. So to introduce you, we're looking to move from beyond inboxes and voicemail to video, where there's no mistaking that you're a voter and not a bot. With a new feature, you'll be able to record a short clip sharing some of your story and personal and PSLF successes for you, for your employer, and those you help, and then have that video uploaded to your members of Congress directly. If you're a hiring manager, the same applies. What does PSLF success mean for you? And what's the plan B if the program goes away? To help, we have talking points at ambar.org/PSLF that are responsive to the kinds of questions and criticisms we hear. For example, remind them that PSLF is not a giveaway. It's an unprecedented and unrivaled 10-year work and repayment requirement. And let them know what that means day to day over that decade. It's not easy. Remind them that all legal interests are protected by PSLF providers, whether prosecutors or public defenders or legal aid lawyers who keep families resilient and more stable in crisis. And let them know that PSLF reaches every state and territory in the union in an identical way. No winners or losers based on who's in office in a given year. And let them know that they should join the bipartisan PSLF caucus when it relaunches later this Congress. If we do this, working with you, working with our allies, including the tremendous PSLF coalition, we think that we have a good shot at shielding the program and keeping cuts to hopefully just a haircut. So check out that website, ambar.org/PSLF, where you'll find more about this new feature and how to use it. Look over the points, consider the story you want to tell, and know that you'll have a maximum impact for your time. And thank you again. PSLF exists because of advocates like you. And with your help, it will continue to close the shortages, bring relief to legal deserts, and provide key services to other under-resourced communities. Thank you.
What an incredible program today. I want to thank all of you for your time, your passion, and your advocacy. Now, before we close, I also want to extend my heartfelt thanks to several people who've made today so meaningful. Thank you very much to the members of Congress who shared their perspectives with us today. Thank you to my friend Ron Flagg, president of the Legal Services Corporation, for his steadfast leadership. And a very special thank you to Judge Salas, whose powerful voice and resilience continue to inspire all of us. Also, thank you to our premier sponsor, Quorum, and our headline sponsors, SKO Gov and Baker Donaldson, for your generous support. Remember, your advocacy does not stop here. In the days ahead, you can continue to make an impact through ABA Day at Home during the congressional recess. So keep using our Quorum platform, stay engaged, and be proud of the work that you've done today. Thank you very much for your advocacy and your dedication. And to close our program, it's my pleasure to welcome back the president of the American Bar Association, Bill Bay.
Thank you, Gene. And thank you to all of you who joined us today as advocates for justice. Today, you've heard from members of Congress, policy experts, and champions of justice. But most importantly, you took action. As we conclude the main program, I invite you to continue the momentum by joining our breakout sessions led by ABA sections, divisions, and forums. These sessions will deepen your understanding and equip you with additional advocacy tools and connect you with issue-specific campaigns that you can support right now. On behalf of the American Bar Association, thank you for standing with us. Together, always together, we are strengthening justice, protecting the judiciary, and making sure every American has access to the legal system. Now I encourage you to join a breakout session. Let's keep this important work going.